No.
Good evening, Yorktown. Welcome to the town board meeting for January 11th, 2022. I hope everyone's staying warm in this cold weather. If you can all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if you could please join me in a moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers the victims, the 17 victims of the fire in the Bronx over the weekend. We pray for their families. We pray for their souls. We also pray for the FDNY, the brave FDNY, who saved countless other lives. And we are thankful for all of our first responders during such a crisis. Thank you. I will just do introductions quickly as I see them on the screen. Again, Supervisor Matt Slater, joined by Councilman Tom Diana, Councilwoman Luciana Howitt. We have Councilman Sergio Esposito and Councilman Ed Lachterman. We also have with us our town clerk, Diana Quast, and our town attorney, Adam Rodriguez. I also see on the screen we have our highway superintendent, Dave Paganelli, and our building inspector, John Landy, who's going to be speaking about the town hall entrance reconstruction. Just quickly, just a couple of announcements for our residents. Let's begin with volunteer opportunities. We have a number of volunteer opportunities here in town to get involved in town government. We have openings on our ethics committee. We have openings on our conservation board, our planning board, and our parks and rec commission. We are once again, and I know people have inquired in the past, but we are once again seeking interested individuals to submit resumes. You can submit them to my office at mslater@yorktownny.org. If you're interested in joining any of these boards, they are very important and critical to the functioning of government. And so we are looking for volunteers to help in a whole bunch of ways. I wanted to just quickly talk about COVID. We have seen more numbers come in yesterday. The share file was just released moments ago, so we haven't had a chance to look at it just yet. We did see 350, I believe it was 356 new cases from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The good news is experts are starting to say that we're going to see a drastic and quick decline, hopefully, by the end of the month, which mirrors what we saw last year if you look at the data that's provided on the community impact dashboard. Working with the town board, we've continued to advocate for FDR Park to be used as a testing site. That is yet to be approved by the governor of New York, but we do have a company that still wants to come to our community to offer drive-through COVID-19 testing. And so we do expect Ridgewood Labs to be stationed up at Granite Knolls by the end of the week and operational by next week, by Monday. This will be by appointment only here in the town of Yorktown. And again, this will be a COVID-19 testing site that we were able to work directly with this one company, Ridgewood Labs. I want to thank Sergio Esposito specifically, who brought them to the town, has spearheaded this effort, which is fantastic. We are still looking at bringing more COVID-19 supplies, specifically at-home testing kits. We are working with our partners in government in order to make that more accessible. We are hopeful that we will have at-home test kits by the end of this week, at which time we will provide an announcement as to how we will get them out to the public. But we are anticipating another shipment coming through for our employees, for our first responders, and members of the public. We have a bunch of items that we're going to be covering today as part of our work session agenda item. The first item on the agenda is our town hall entrance reconstruction. I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Tom Diana, who's been the point person on this project. And I know he's going to be joined by John Landy, John Tegeter, our Director of Planning, and our Town Engineer, Dan Ciarcia. So Councilman Diana, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Supervisor. And hello, everybody. As you can see, we had quite a December out there when we were getting rid of the tank, et cetera, et cetera. We've gone past that at this point. And as of today, I have spoken to Luzon, and I don't know, Dan, if you had a chance to contact them with regard to the removal of the soil, but they're not anticipating any answer to that before the beginning of next week. Um, it's due to the fact that where they bring it, there's only a certain amount that can be brought in, and there's certain testings that they require. And supposedly the geologist is working on that as we speak. And then we have had quite a team that's worked on this whole thing, from John Landy to Dan Ciarcia to John Tegeter to our comptroller. Uh, and I'm probably forgetting somebody. But our supervisor, we've all had a cumulative effort. Oh, and our building's boss. How can I forget Phil Marino? But we've had quite a cumulative effort out there, and now it's almost time to move on to phase 2, which would be our entrance reconstruction to get things back to normal here at Town Hall. We definitely need a front door, a front entrance, even though we have a beautiful handicapped accessible at the right side of the building now. We also will have one in the front. So at that, Dan, would you like to fill in on anything with the remediation in as far as that goes at this point? And then maybe we can move on to John Landy with anything with building, and then John, of course, Tegeter, who's going to be doing the planning on the reconstruction of the front of Town Hall.
Well, Tom, I think you touched on everything as far as the remediation. As far as the DEC is concerned, we've removed all the soil necessary for them to consider the cleanup complete. So now it's a matter of hauling the contaminated material out of there, which you touched on. We need to get the analytical results and get things lined up with a disposal facility. So that's all coming together. And now it's time to put things back together. John Tegeter and I have been sort of working together, seeing what available information we have available, and also working on getting a survey done so we can make sure everything all works on the final product. And that's kind of where we're at on the cleanup. And I guess maybe John Tegeter may want to take over with what he's been working on for the concept plan for the restoring the access to the building.
John, if I could just interject for 1 second here. The other thing Dan had forgotten to give himself credit for is we're also working on getting natural gas brought into the building. That is one of the main parts of this project, so that we can redo the boilers hopefully by springtime. And instead of having to put them in and run them off oil, we're going to put them in and run them with natural gas. So Dan's been working with Con Edison with that, with Mr. Muldoon and the other fellow there,
Luigi.
How could you forget Luigi? So we have some logistics, so to speak, to work out with regard to where the meter is going to be placed and how the line is going to be run, etc. But as soon as we get that information, we can actually put the line in the ground hopefully prior to construction, so that everything is dug up once and it's finished. We don't have to go back and redig. Okay, John, I'm sorry to butt in on your glory.
No glory. Thank you. So if I could share my screen, am I able to do that? Everyone see that?
We got it.
Okay. So this is what we've been working on to put back the front of Town Hall. So up here, can everyone see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Up here are the existing handicap parking spaces across from the front entrance, which is right here. You may recognize this as the stoop that was just recently removed due to the oil spill. And we are proposing to put back, basically in the same configuration that had existed earlier, the general layout of what was there before, which is a stoop roughly of the same size with the 4 steps down to the landing that is at the same grade level as the parking lot to facilitate the ADA access. 2 small ramps up to either side. In order to get in, you would come this way around, and then you would access an 18-foot ramp up to the platform that would give you entry through the front door to the building. What we are adding is this protrusion here is the front door, and it has a small slate roof with some colonial style molding and decoration to it. We are going to extend that out over to cover the landing area. So this will be a covered entry now. All of the same and similar materials will be used. Essentially, it will bring forth the same design. We will match the roof material, match the styling of the colonial molding, including the columns. There will be 2 new columns here. So that architecture will remain and will be enhanced and pulled from what the existing architecture is. In here, we will obviously have new landscaping throughout. I think we are thinking about mimicking some of the things that were done out in this area, which is in terms of mulch using river rock. We will have shrubbery within that. This is a little bit more maintenance, less intensive in terms of maintenance, since you don't have to mulch it 2 or 3 times a year. Now down along here, first thing that we are proposing is to straighten out this curb here. Right now it comes into this area, and then there's I'm going to call this the new sidewalk because it was done in 2018 or 2019. Comes out here and it curves back in to facilitate the ADA accessibility. We're going to straighten that out to make it a little bit more easier for cars to not sort of get caught up against this little curb here. That will create a new landscaping area, which we will obviously fill with some shrubbery. The sidewalk will continue in the same location as it is now, the curved sidewalk that goes over to the access down to the lower parking lot. And what you see here is the recent ramp that was built for the ADA accessibility in the interim. This is the stone wall that exists there. That's a small and low retaining wall. What we're doing here is, by virtue of this construction, this existing stair moves straight up, as everyone will recall. We are proposing now to remove that and move it back to facilitate the construction of a retaining wall and to hold back some of the grade that is necessary to be held back to facilitate its construction, and also to make it easier in terms of the retaining walls and regrading. This line here represents a new retaining wall that will hold back the grade that exists up towards the top of the stairs. The stairs will be in this plan will be similar to what's there. They'll be the same rise and run, and it's basically just moving a little bit to the left as you come up to make some room into this area to facilitate construction. I just want to point out that we are not settled completely on this. In terms of this area, unlike this area, which basically seems to work fine, so we're putting it back much as it existed. This area you can solve in a number of different ways. This is what we're proposing presently. There are discussions whether to keep the stair on a straight run So we are not settled completely on that, although I do think that this will make life a little bit easier in terms of construction and managing some of the grade issues that were kind of created when we embarked on doing this ADA accessible ramp.
John, if I can interject for 2 seconds, can you just fill the board in on our conversation earlier today? If we kept the stairs as is, and with the trip hazards that we've identified there, if we wanted to fix them,
yes.
Can you just enlighten them on that conversation?
Yeah. So, and this is part of what I was speaking about in terms of a lot of different ways to solve this issue here. But when you consider that the stairs that exist now are probably decades old and have been repaired and are probably today in need of some repair, fixing the type of issues that are with it is really patching and so forth, and always not really the best idea. While we're doing all of this construction, it's sensible, if we wish to repair this, to actually remove it and replace it. Once you remove it, you're not beholden to put it back in the same spot, and moving it, to the left, to the right, up, back and forth is kind of a clean slate that we have before us. So that's why this is in the configuration that it is.
John,
yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Is there already drip hoses in the front beds? Because once you put the river rock, are we going to have to is there water access in the front for drip hoses for the plants?
There's not in the front areas. I think that there's,
There-
I'm not
there-
sure.
there
I
is
think there's
a
access
water
somewhere
line
along
out
here.
there.
So we
Excuse
could put them in eventually. We could put them in before.
For soaker hoses, yeah, you could.
Yeah, and then also, how high is that wall by the new stair line, by where the new ramp is?
Well, it will be varied. So, in this
So it
area,
has a grade.
yeah, it'll be a little higher in this area, but as it goes along here, this grade in here will move from a low point to a high point up here. So this wall, in terms of its height, its top of wall and bottom of wall will vary.
So it won't need like
Not
a
very
2-inch hole.
At the most, it'll be 4 to 5 feet high at the most. I don't even think it'll reach 5 feet.
So gravity will take the water from the beds, from the rain, and bring it down.
Yes.
Bring it down underneath the
Yeah.
actual steps and so forth there. And they, if I'm not mistaken, John, they already put filter fabric and so forth down underneath the rampways at that point.
Okay. I did not know that.
I think. I'm not sure. Dan might have a better.
Yeah, they put some down. I don't know if they just sort of did that as temporary erosion control or as a beginning of whatever the landscaping is going to be.
Right.
It also protects the footing so it doesn't get soaked. Makes sense.
Yeah. So in this area, I'm looking at a type of ground cover, low maintenance, in this area as well.
Yeah, like myrtle, maybe something that stays green and then like has a little bit of color in the spring. Something.
Correct.
Like that.
That's
Mhm.
correct. Absolutely correct. Low maintenance is the key there. So, and that's basically it. In these areas, obviously, we'll be selecting shrubbery. We will be refining, this area and these areas once we get the survey completed, and we will be, as we move forward, making final decisions and refining some layout and retaining walls, heights, and things of that nature. But we wanted to, bring kind of the concept to you, make sure you know where it's going, and see if you have any reservations or comments on it.
If I could just
John,
ask John Landy quickly, John, can you just explain to folks why we had to demo the stairs of the front entrance, and then what was a follow-up action taken because of demoing those stairs? John Landy, you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. As you can see, there's yards and yards of contaminated soil out in front. It appears that there had been many years of this tank leaking. So the spread of the oil was widespread. So as we were digging it out and testing, we kept testing the soil, and we just had to go wider and wider and wider, which required us to remove the front steps so we can continue removing all contaminated soils that were around the tank and in the front of the building. Again, it appeared to be many years of leakage that were occurring. So,
And as a result of the stairs and the walkway being demolished, did you feel it was necessary that we provide the ADA ramp?
Well, we had to. We always have to have access to town hall, and we have to maintain an ADA compliant access area. So with those requirements, the only area to do so was in the area of where we constructed it. And I think it came out quite nice. And it also gives us, a second access, ADA access, even after everything is complete. So, yeah, unfortunately, we had to close town hall because of COVID, but I assume you're going to be opening it soon, and this project's going to take quite a while. So we have to keep maintaining a ADA access to the building.
Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. I just wanted to make sure the board understood that, since there's a resolution later on the agenda that pertains to the actual ramp.
Honestly, wasn't there a plan to put a ramp there from years ago anyway? From what I understand, that's what I thought, unless I'm mixed up. But I thought there was always some kind of a plan to give ADA access directly into the meeting room.
In my opinion, Councilman, it allows you now to have access to the meeting room, to the boardroom, without having to open up the rest of the whole building also, because now you can come in through that area if you'd like. Or, God forbid, there's an emergency, you can get people out, handicapped people out of the building quite quickly through that area.
No, I think it's a home run. I have no problem.
I think it looks good too. I mean, it really matches the style of the building, in my opinion, and it looks quite nice. They did a great job in the short period of time that we had to do it in.
Just one more time, next steps, if we can, from John and Dan and Councilman Diana.
Well,
go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, from where I stand, we're going to continue to develop this. If the board would like us to go forward with this general layout, we will start, refining it into more construction-like documents, leading to construction documents. We hope in a couple of weeks, and I think Dan knows a little bit better than I do, get some survey information that will help us refine this. That's our charge at present.
And what I wanted, if I may, Supervisor Slater, when John was talking about the staircase leading down to the lower parking lot, I agree with him. Those stairs are in disarray, a lot of trip hazards, as you've pointed out numerous times to us, Supervisor. And to repair them properly would be removing them. And if we're going to remove them, as John Tegeter has explained, you're better off putting them in a better configuration, which would, help us put up retaining walls to hold back the dirt, as he explained. And we've been talking about different types of materials to use to blend in with the building. And I think those talks will continue, even railing types and things of that nature. So everything will blend in beautiful. John's doing a great job. Dan's doing a great job. I think you put together a good team here, Supervisor.
Well, it was Councilman Diana, so we appreciate his leadership on that. Are there any other questions from the town board on this?
Yeah, Dan, I'm sorry, John Tegeter, do you have do you have any front renderings? I know we had discussed maybe a little portico or a. Did you do a rendering on that one yet?
I did not do a rendering of the portico. I can and will do that if you like.
Okay.
But the plan is to use, really to match what's there. So if you look at it now today, the gable end of the new portico will match what's there. It will have an arch in it, have this same type of molding. The columns will be similar to the pilaster columns that you see there with the flutes. That's the plan at present. So it's going to look much the same. It's just going to be pulled off the existing entry portico there and create a covered entry.
Very nice. Very nice. I just want to thank everybody again for their cooperation, their assistance, and their tenaciousness in getting this taken care of. Like I say, we want to do this in an order of progression, order of construction, so that we don't have to do things twice. We don't have to do two diggings. We don't have to rip up stuff that's already paved or whatever the case may be. We want to do it once, do it right, and be done with it, which falls into our master plan of the new boilers, in which we're working with Con Edison and quite possibly Con Edison may even be able to give us some assistance in the purchasing of those boilers, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Dan? Is that maybe part of the mix?
I don't think we're going to get any assistance on the purchasing of the boilers just because of their age, but we may get some assistance on the installation of the pipe because we're converting to natural gas.
Correct. Right. That's right. We did have this. My mistake. So hopefully that'll all go according to plan. Have you had a discussion with Mr. Muldoon at all? Has he gotten back in touch with you? With I know it's the project center is.
Yeah, I talked to Mike last week, so he knows this is coming, and as soon as it gets, even though they really designed this before, it's kind of how it works down there that they'll have to kick it out to engineering. Although we already from a few years back, they already did the layout for us. So yeah. I actually uploaded that to the project center so they could see what their previous design was. Because at that time we were looking at converting the boilers and also running the generator on natural gas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's right. I forgot we switched over to diesel generator. But as most people have noticed, there is a temporary tank that is supplying fuel oil to the oil burners at Town Hall at present. Right now, that tank is being rented and or borrowed so that we can do that. We'd rather not put another tank in the ground if we can help it. That's why we're moving forward with this plan for the gas line to run our new boilers and have them run off natural gas. Then that's all I got.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate everyone's efforts. We're going to move on to our next item. Dan Ciarcia. Thank you, Mr. Landy. And Mr. Tegeter is going to be sticking around for other items in the agenda. But Mr. Ciarcia, microfilter replacements. Let's talk sewers. Why don't you introduce this to the board so they understand what the microfilters are, and then how we go about getting them replaced.
Okay, well, I won't go too far back, but I think it's probably of interest to the new board members to know how this all works. This all goes back to the New York City Watershed Agreement, which was really born out of them trying to avoid building a filtration plant. They ended up building one for the Croton system, but their other systems presently are not filtered. So their back and forth with EPA is to show that they're being vigilant to ensure they're protecting their water supply. So where we fall into this is this particular unit operation, which is called microfiltration, is more typical of what you would see in a drinking water treatment plant. And this is fully paid for by the DEP because it is not required by the DEC to meet the water quality goals. This is really has to do with the organisms, which are the basis for pretty much every other public water supply having to filter their water, which is the Cryptosporidium and Giardia. So those filters are there to protect the Croton system. And as a consequence of this not being required by our permit, the DEP fully funds this particular element of our treatment system. If you've been to the plant and you know that there's the one room that has all these big silver apparatus in it, it fills up a whole large gallery of one of the buildings. Those things all have to be replaced. The filters inside of it. There's 600 and something cartridges that have to go in. So the cost of this will be about $1 million. And because of that, it's based upon a requirement imposed by DEP, they're on the hook to fully fund it. So we have a bid document ready to go out. I met with Pat today and we went through the actual financing of it. So the sewer district does have a fund balance, and the way this would work, it's sort of the same protocol that we do when we get grants, that we have to expend the money, then we pay the contract or whatever, then we submit to either the agency, in this case, which happens to be DEP, for reimbursement. So our fund balance will basically allow us to float the construction project, and then ultimately we'll be whole once we get reimbursed fully by the DEP.
Dan, can I ask you a question? Is it something, obviously there are filters, so they're going to go on there to do their filtering, right? Is it something that you're going to have to maintain? Is there a replacement? How long are they, like, now that we're going to replace them all, how long do they last?
We probably ought to be replacing them, probably on a 4 to 5 year cycle. And we might go and shorten that so they don't all go bad at the same time. That we might do half of them sooner than later, and not be in a position where they're all going bad simultaneously. But I think the more important part of it, answer your question, is the DEP doesn't only pick up the capital cost, they pay for our chemicals, they pay part of our salaries. So there's an ongoing maintenance arrangement with the DEP to help fund the treatment processes we have to do that go above and beyond what the DEC would otherwise require.
No, that's great. And then obviously we're going to have some sort of proactive, changing batteries for the smoke detectors on New Year's, but there's just something like, when you turn your clocks back or whatever the rule is, so that we can monitor, like you said, when something needs to be placed or not, right?
Yeah, and you'll see, we'll get you over the plan to see the place, but this ain't the only thing where you got to be doing that. We got a lot of stuff that you got to stay on top of, and can't wait till it breaks stuff. We got to, we've got to have a good preventive maintenance program to keep everything humming over there.
Thank you for answering my question.
Hey, Dan, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. So you're saying this is 100% refundable?
Yes, this is 100%.
And so can you just circulate to the board? I know you sent me the agreement. It was, I forget, close to, I think, 60 pages. Can you just send specifically where that is so the board has it, so we know for sure?
Okay. Yeah, I'll circulate that to the board and spare them the looking for it. I'll tell you what page to look at.
That'd be great.
If they want to drill in a little deeper, be my guest, but that's to cut to the chase. That's on this particular issue. Yeah, it's to demonstrate that the microfiltration is 100% reimbursable.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions about this project by the board? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ciarcia. Appreciate it.
All right. So just so the board knows, then I'd like to advertise this for bid at the next meeting. And we also have our other annual stuff that we'll be sending up, which is our chemicals, and we have sludge hauling and grease removal. So just by way of a heads up, and I'll have those things ready for the next meeting for advertising.
Great.
Sounds like glamorous stuff.
Oh, you bet.
Thanks, Dan. If you can just send those resolutions over to the clerk's office, since it's a regular town board meeting next week, that'd be great.
All right, you got it.
Appreciate it. All right, next I'm going to put my mask on because our comptroller is coming in. We have Pat Caparel. We're going to talk about the ARA money, the American Recovery Act, that the federal government handed down to local municipalities. This has been a point of discussion previously, and continuously is right. I'm just going to turn this so we can all see Pat. Okay, so we've had some updates on this project, or excuse me, not the project, but the funding, about what we can actually use the money for. Do you want to update us since they handed down the final rule on Friday?
Right, but there still isn't 100% clarification on the final rule.
Right.
So there are 2 seminars this week that my office will be participating in, specifically as to what we can and can't spend the funding on. So definitively, I still can't tell you 100% all the projects that we could use the money for until hopefully our next work session.
Right. But we do have an idea of a couple of things that we are able to use the money for. So do we want to start tossing ideas to the board to see what their thoughts are, and we can start going from there? Sure.
Right now, what we know that we can spend the money on is on drainage and our culverts, to start get the engineering done for the culvert replacements.
Right.
Those we can say that the money can be spent on that.
Right. So those are infrastructure projects.
Right.
And if you look at our capital improvement budget, there were 4 culverts that it identified that we would like to hopefully get into design. So we have shovel-ready projects, as we saw with the pump stations. Once you have these projects in design and they're shovel-ready, you have a much better chance of getting grant dollars, as we saw also with Hill Boulevard and Veterans Road. So the next 4, I believe, are Old Crampon. We had Old Crampon, we had Broad Street, we had Ridge Street, and Strang Boulevard, the Gambian Wall over at Strang. So we know the funding from the feds could fund the engineering phases of those 4 projects, and those are the next 4 culverts that have been identified by the engineering department and the highway department in the need to be addressed. And then also from the highway department, we know that there are several drainage projects that we need to take care of. So we can also look at those. I know that Allen Avenue's got one, and Obi Junior Lake has one as well. Those are 2 that we've identified already. And I don't know if Dave's on, but he's got others that I know he's been focused on too.
Yes.
So that's what we know definitively the money can go towards. So, there's other things that we're looking at, including the library, to see if we can work with the library on expanding their wireless access. We know that, we're hoping that we can use some money for some water infrastructure. But again, the 2 seminars are Friday, and we'll be able to come back to our next work session with a more definitive answer on those items that are still outstanding.
Because I know I would certainly like a lot more clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, let's not rush to spend the money. It's not going anywhere. Let's find out exactly what we could do. Let's put a plan together. Let's prioritize it. And off of the, off of our safety list and our capital improvements, and really see where the best bang for the buck is after we have everything.
Right, but if the board decided at this point that you wanted to move ahead with, say, the drainage or the engineering for the culverts, that's fine. That's not a problem.
Right.
So
We know we can
something
do
for
that.
you to consider. Okay,
Well,
and
the culverts become safety issues as well, so definitely that's probably a high priority anyway.
Yeah, we've seen it over at Oak Prom Pond, especially over behind McDonald's. I know that we've already identified that a few times.
mhm.
Any other thoughts from the board on what we've been able to provide so far?
There's something good about, no, there's something well said about exactly what Councilman Ed just mentioned when he said that there are those priorities that you could just get off the list.
Yeah, and this is basically like free money, right? So that's why, I think the culvert projects make a lot of sense, because we got to pay for the engineering on that. You rarely get a grant for the engineering side, so
Right.
we're gonna have to pay for that one way or the other. So might as well pay it with free money, and then be able to
Yeah.
put it forward for some potential grants. And then drainage is, Dave's out there with their guys on Wiscora. They've been doing a lot of work on the drainage.
Oh, we
side.
need it. We need the
Right.
drainage work on the town.
So they seem like, they almost seem like ground balls. I know they're not the sexiest things in town, but this is supposed to be infrastructure money, and we have infrastructure needs that we've identified. So, but we know for a fact that those items can be addressed with the money, and then we're gonna come back with the rest to see once we get more
I
information
promise.
from the seminars that's on Friday.
Yeah, and nipping them in the butt means that we won't have bigger problems later on. So getting them done and done right now that we have them is going to definitely minimize the damages that are going to come later. But thanks, Pat, for going to the seminar. We appreciate it.
We're trying.
Pat, did they happen to mention anything about sidewalks, et cetera, for this money,
That's a good one too, Tommy.
Nothing yet? Okay.
Nothing yet. No. And that's what I'm looking for, is just a little bit more guidance as to what we can do. I don't want to say, oh yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Let's consider it infrastructure, because we also have to do an accounting of this, and we have to turn it into the federal government. They've got the right to come back and tell us that what we've chosen does not qualify.
After we spent the money.
After we spent the money, by the way. So
Yeah, so dance with caution. Dance with caution.
Well, yeah, that's why we're trying to be safe with some of the things that we've identified, and they're already in the capital improvement project anyway, so, capital improvement plan anyway.
yeah. Mhm.
So, we'd like to be more creative, but we also don't want the federal government to come back and say what you spent it on was wrong.
Yeah. No, that wouldn't be good.
Yeah. So,
Oh.
all right.
All right, so
Very
whenever you
good.
decide, you guys let me know, and we'll do resolutions accordingly.
Okay. Very good.
Okay?
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, Dave doesn't have any drainage projects, I don't think, that he wants to do. Do you, Dave?
Dave just bought a boat.
I'm back. Hold on. I was actually texting Tommy when he mentioned sidewalks. Gee, I wonder what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh my
But
God,
yes,
that would be the best.
We do have a lot of drainage projects, in particular the ones the supervisor mentioned, Allen Avenue and Junior Lake, which unfortunately is going underneath the building, which would prohibit opening that pool this summer until we get it done. So we actually had the fellow down with the pipe relining yesterday, and got eyes on everything. So we're just waiting to get a purchase order, get some money into the drainage line, and get together for that. So yes, we have a lot of projects. We've got Granite Springs Road from Dunning all the way up to Ridge. We are just finished up on Wiscora. We've got one on Baldwin Road, the older section. We got a whole bunch of crossovers lined up. So yeah, we have a lot of drainage work, but it's all corrugated metal pipe. It's in the ground for 50, 60 years, and it just doesn't have that kind of life expectancy. So it's all sort of going at once, but we'll get it done. We appreciate whatever money we can get from the federal government, and we appreciate Pat doing all the work to ascertain where that money could be spent. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We'll go on to our next item, which is the solar law. We have proposed amendments. Is John Tegeter still with us?
I am.
There he is.
Okay, Councilman Diana, this is something that we're batting around last year towards the end. So we have a new round of amendments. John or Adam, do you want to walk us through the amendments to make sure that the board understands what was included?
It doesn't matter to me.
Your call, buddy.
I can pull it up. Just give me a second.
You guys could do rock, paper, scissors, but I don't know how that works on Zoom.
I don't know how it works in real life. Never played it.
I think you have to do the one that says whose birthday
right,
is the closest to today.
I'm off mute. So, we made a variety of changes. I'll just kind of highlight them, and then John can add some details if, he deems it appropriate. So one of the components that we added was a requirement of annual inspections for large-scale solar power systems, basically to make sure the landscaping, screening, and buffering, et cetera, are in compliance with the approvals that are obtained via the planning board. We also made it clear that the planning board shall require a decommissioning bond, and that decommissioning bond has to be in an amount sufficient to cover the cost of decommissioning. We also changed the setback requirements in residential districts. The minimum setback can't be any less than 10 feet from any property boundary. And we also changed the minimum lot size for large-scale energy systems from 2 to 5 in residential zones. Let's see. Smaller scale have to be on lot sizes of at least 2 acres in size, as opposed to 1, which is what it says now in the law as it is.
And that's ground mount, correct?
Yeah.
Ground, yeah.
Those are basically the changes.
Adam, I think you said the setback shall be 10 feet. I think you meant to say 100.
I did mean 100.
Yeah, because it does.
Yes,
right
and
now,
the height is 10. I'm sorry. The setback is 100. It was 50 to 100. My apologies.
Right. Okay.
So we reduced the height on residential from where it was 15 down to 10. And then for commercial
Right.
application, all other applications or special use permit, 20 feet up to 20 feet.
Right.
Okay.
Right, 15 to 10.
Yep. And just a word about the annual inspection, so that it will require, as Adam said, annual inspection, which will require a written report with photographs if necessary. And that goes to the town engineer's office, just so Dan knows that he's got a little bit more stuff coming his way. And he does the repairs and replacement of anything that's deficient needs to be to the town engineer's satisfaction. And if not, he needs to start an enforcement procedure pursuant to 300-199, which has been a longstanding section in the zoning code that gives authority to the town engineer to make sure landscaping and so forth on approved site plans are maintained in good order.
Forgive me, Adam, did you mention also on abandonment and decommissioning that we changed may to shall?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I apologize.
And now it's clear that it has to be in an amount sufficient to cover the decommissioning, which, I think was implied. But
Correct. So if it was decommissioned in 20 years, the amount has to be able to cover the cost.
Yeah.
And what professional does the inspection? Is that a company that's hired out by the people who run the solar farm?
It's the responsibility of the owner or the operator of the solar farm to do the inspections.
And then the way we keep them honest is with it having submitted to Dan, correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
The mitigation for tree loss. That's a pretty important chapter here. That the changes that have been made in there basically make the town whole again, where in which I believe prior to that there was a hole, so to speak. And this way here, between that and the abandonment decommissioning, at least the town isn't held responsible for having to decommission and or abandon the sites, and also that the buffering and the mitigation with the trees, replacement of any trees that may die because of the buffering and so on and so forth, is at the sole responsibility of the owner of that particular solar farm, so to speak.
Right. And just by way of clarity, Tom, you're talking about landscaping and screening, right?
Yeah. And I know that the planning board has been vigilant at this point in time with balloon tests and so on, which is a great thing, so that you can actually get a visual on where anywhere from the four corners, so to speak, that you can see or not see these panels that may be honkered in a piece of property. And I think that that's a great thing. I guess there's at one point there's probably going to be have to have a mock-up kind of a solar panel to put in certain places, see if they can be seen. But the actual the balloon test does work out quite well. I went on one of them not long ago up in the Jefferson Valley area, and you might have been able to see just the corner of one, but that was in the fall, no leaves on the trees and so forth. But it wasn't bad. And I forget, how high up were they in Jefferson Valley, John? Do you remember?
I think they were 12 feet.
12 feet, yeah. So hopefully this will be this will work for this particular plan, because I've gotten some people that have contacted me with regard to what happens when the panels become obsolete, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully this law, now that we've strengthened it, will not have to cause us to go into a moratorium for people who want to do this type of thing, but will do it respectfully for their neighbors and for the environment.
Any other comments on the proposed amendments? No. So if there's no other comments, I think we can refer it out and set the public hearing.
No. I have to draft. This is not in a complete local law format, so I can do that, and then it can be referred out. So we can do that next week.
Sounds good.
I mean, you have the structure, but I have to put it in actual format.
Roger
so
that.
As long as there are no other changes, I can do that.
So if there's no other changes being voiced, then you can put it on for next week, and we can refer it out and set the public hearing.
Yeah, I think it basically touched on everything, on all the points that I had. And many of the points that I had were already in the law, but John Taggart and I went through the law at one point. You really have to go through it 2 or 3 times to really absorb all the nuances, so to speak, of that particular law, to see. It's like all of a sudden it'll be like one sneaky little word in there that just makes it better, and you just happen to overlook that, miss it. You go on to the next sentence, and you got to go through this law a couple of times to really get the gravity of the law, so that it does work for all of Yorktown and for all of its residents, hopefully.
All right. So then we'll move on to our next item, which is the outdoor dining and sidewalk sales permits. Councilman Esposito is going to take the lead on this. John Taggart, you wanted to stick around for it with some potential comments from planning. So Councilman Esposito, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic is still among us, as we've seen this holiday season. The existing outdoor dining that the town board put into place expired, I believe, on the 31st of December, right? So my proposal is to extend it at least for one. I'll start the bidding at 1 year. I think it's helped our business community tremendously. As a matter of fact, Governor Hochul is looking to bring back the to-go alcohol. It's kind of like in disarray right now, the way they're rolling that out. But, that's the plan. So I think we're all on the same page. And, of course, I would probably say that we should require whoever has outdoor dining permits that are out there already under the previous, term should, reapply. We should waive the fees. And then so that would give the opportunity for a fresh look to make sure that it's safe, and it's still safe as far as the building department, the planning board, whoever it is, deems its safety. So I think it's something that we have to do, to be quite honest. I mean, our businesses are really our lifeline here in Yorktown. They really need our help. I don't see how we can't do it or we shouldn't do it. But John, I defer to you.
Did you say John?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You said you had
No,
some comments, right? Mike said you had comments.
No, my only comments are that I think in the midst of this pandemic, it's necessary to help those folks that struggle because people do not want to be indoors, and rightfully so. We've learned that over the last couple of years. I want to point out and by way of reminder, first of all, I think that you probably should limit yourselves to 1 year in 1 year batches, being that once the pandemic lifts, which I hope it's soon, and people do return somewhat to indoor dining, we need to be careful that, this is really establishing land use, and we need to be careful that there's parking available. You can see that if people are not utilizing interiors of restaurants and only the exterior, that you can really sort of expect that there's going to be enough parking and it will remain safe. If you are establishing a large outdoor dining area similar to the size and seating numbers of the interior, and then you have both of those being utilized at once, you may have a parking problem. So for those reasons, we need to be mindful of once the pandemic is lifted that there's proper review processes in place, or we go back to the way the law read originally to make sure that we're remaining safe for the public.
Thanks for that, John. The safety of the public is paramount. And you and I have had this conversation about this one particular location, and it mirrors many of the locations, or a number of locations, not many of them, that are high traffic locations. The one case in point is the Trailside Cafe there, where you have a tremendous amount of traffic right there at that intersection, to include tractor trailers and buses, et cetera, that we have to determine that possibly a Ballard system needs to be put up there in case something does go awry. I mean, let's look at what just happened to Town Hall a matter of a couple of weeks ago, where somebody came right across Route 118 and crashed right into the wall down by where the new stairway is.
Yeah, but
so, it can happen. And that's the thing that is worrisome to me. You could take like the Yorktown Grill, and believe me, I have nothing against the outside dining. I think it's great. The Yorktown Grill, that's a major cross through right there. So their actual buffer I believe needs to be some type of a structured buffer of some type. So for safety purposes only, and it can be removable. Even if it's the water filled barriers. Yeah.
I mean, most people aren't utilizing it, the outdoor dining now. It's 15 degrees out. he could put 12,000 BTU heaters.
Well, no, not now.
but yeah. So no, I mean, I agree. Public safety is of paramount importance, but that's why I figure maybe you guys want to put something in what I'm proposing today that will allow you to go and revisit the locations or have the people reapply. I think outdoor dining has brought a different type of ambiance or atmosphere to Yorktown. I think going back post-pandemic, yeah, we could implement it on a more permanent basis with a different set of guidelines to ensure public safety. But honestly, I think it's been a tremendous help for our business community.
I think a 1-year extension makes sense. If the board has no objections, I've spoken with the building inspector. We discussed having him go to each of the establishments that have applied for outdoor dining in the past. If they are looking to make it a permanent outdoor dining scenario, then they would have to follow the normal procedure, as we've seen other restaurants do. But for the 1-year extension, obviously making sure that it's a safe experience for everybody involved is the top priority. But I think the 1 year makes sense, and hopefully, God willing, we wouldn't have to extend it again, and we can get back to a normal course of action for outdoor dining permits.
Yeah, I believe that we need to support the commission.
Matt, you brought up a really important point, which is, you look at Trailside, look at Yorktown Grill, and those, Trailside, I think, was actually applied for, or they were putting out the tables before the pandemic. I don't know if they have a proper permit on it. But, they really need to be spoken to say, look, if you want to make this permanent, let's get it into planning now. Let's get it worked on. We still don't have to pay the fee. That's fine. But let's not, wait until the last minute, because then the story next year, which is all rescinded, is going to be, oh, but last year it was okay. So we really need to get ahead of the curve and make sure there's a total understanding that this is what we need to move towards.
But I think we support that. I mean, I encourage people, if they found that the outside dining offered them a different perspective, brought different clientele, engaged the community more, to come forth and try to, to get that full permit. I think it's important.
Yeah, but Luciano, the problem is that sometimes businesses, I'll be nice and say sometimes businesses don't understand the entire process. And, the process has some cost involved in it, because, when you talk about ballards, when you talk about that safety, there's going to be a cost involved. But they have to understand that, keeping your patrons safe is paramount. And, Tommy mentioned Trailside, and I've sat on that corner and had an ice cream with Carol. Actually, I think Tommy, you, me, and Donna.
Yeah,
and Carol
we were there that one night. Yeah. Yeah,
and there was a delivery truck going by, and it was like, whoa, we were all backed up in our seats to get closer to the building. Mm-hmm. So you just really, so sometimes people do it in the old saying, and it's better to ask forgiveness and seek permission.
Then ask permission, yeah.
Yeah, and that's
no. I think safety first is paramount. I'm not going against that. I just find that if there is that kind of window, I don't want to play the game where everyone takes the 1 year extension and then there's this bombarding of, well, now I want it. It's almost like, listen, we encourage the business development and obviously safety first.
No, of course, but they need to understand to go forward and go through the process and do it the right way.
I think what we'll probably end up doing is making an announcement. Maybe we make some kind of a determination based on what's going on in the world out there with COVID, maybe around June, and making a determination and starting to spread the word that we possibly might not be extending it one more year come the end of the year. So get your ducks in a row. We could.
Well, I actually see. I'm sorry. I see half of a figure that could help us out, because you sort of that the headless building inspector. So I think part of it that would help is having John and Landy if he sees something that makes sense and needs a safety, to go and talk to them and even facilitate their going to planning and meeting with John Tegeter and trying to get it rolling. You know, being proactive, that's all.
And as far as the permit goes, it should already be drafted. I don't think we've ever discussed an increase or anything like that on the paperwork. The paperwork should be something that they can reach. It should be black and white. It'll give you the process. It'll give you what the fees are. It'll give you what the insurance needs are. And then we can go from there. I mean, I know it's a new year and I don't have the permit.
I don't think we set the insurance standards for a business. You know, if individual businesses set that, and if you're a franchise, it's set by a franchise.
And as far as I understand, I'm sorry to interrupt you. As far as I understand, there are no fees for the permit to allow outdoor dining.
Okay.
It's at zero cost. We go in, we make sure that the fire lanes are not blocked. I think a thing we're going to add now is because of parking constraints and things of that nature. If, for an example, your restaurant allows you to have 30 seats inside, you take 15, and put them outside. So now you can only have 15 outside and 15 inside. This way, now you only have 30 seats still.
John, you saw my face.
So if you're only allowed 30 seats based on parking, you should only still have 30 seats.
What if I want to walk?
I'm sorry?
What if I want to walk?
What do you mean want to walk where?
There's no, if I lease a restaurant and it's 75 seats inside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I have zero fee on my permit because that's what we have. And I decide I can put out 4 tables based on what John and I tangoed. And this is what's safe out here. And this is going to keep my Yorktowners prim and proper. And this is going to work. Then I have to now exclude, they're 4 toppers, let's say. 4 times 4, I got to exclude that from my seating on the inside.
Correct. But because it's not only based upon parking calculations, New York State has very strict restrictions on bathroom count, how many people can be in a restaurant, on bathroom counts, all different restrictions. So just because we're allowing them to have outdoor seating, you cannot increase the number of patrons just because you're adding space. There's other factors that are involved.
The capacity of the venue, of the restaurant, has to be its total amount of patrons that are there.
Correct.
But remember,
I'm going to read about this.
No problem. If you want to come by, I'll show you the laws.
Yeah, you and I are going to hang out with that law.
This is a pandemic. This is something that's born out of the pandemic. And I don't believe, and I could be wrong, that I haven't seen an overcrowding or a problem with parking since we put this into effect.
No.
And this is still born out of the pandemic. So I don't necessarily believe we're gonna have that problem. I wish we had that problem in Yorktown. Probably get in trouble.
I agree. And I'm just going strictly by, the planning board will do the same thing. If you went to the planning board to get outdoor seating, I don't know if John Tegeter's still here or not. If you go, I'm sorry.
I see him, he's right there.
I'm here.
If you go to the planning board, you're trying to get outdoor seating, I do believe they'll reduce your interior seating to give you the exterior seating. Is that correct, John?
In certain cases, that can happen, yes.
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be certain cases because I have experience in the city and, you can't sit outside right now. So I lose those extra 15 seats, but I gain them back in April. So I guess it all depends on where you're tangoing, how you read the law, and how we put it down. So and there are no parking spots, John. There's no parking spots in Manhattan.
I'm going to follow whatever you guys require, but I mean, based upon state laws, and other restrictions, I really, and as Councilman Esposito said, I don't think you're going to have overcrowding. I don't think you're going to have restaurants that. I hope so too. I would love to see that. I really would. Especially this time of year, I don't think you're going to have a lot of people outside.
No.
I really, especially, in this cold. But, we got to look at everything now. We got to start looking at safety and, again, all the laws.
Yeah, not to lose track. I think that right now the extension is something that, even I'm grateful for, just even if I wanted to sit outside. So that's wonderful. And keeping safety in mind is key. And knowing that there's no fees for the permit if there is somebody who is a qualified, business that wants outdoor seating permanently because they enjoy having it. I think, John, they should reach out and get that done too. So
I just want to say this about that.
They'll require fees if they want it permanent, I'm sure, to go through the planning board.
Yes,
that's correct. The no fees is for the going through the building department right now.
Yeah, right. It's the response to the pandemic. So when the businesses are in trouble and people will not dine inside, it makes sense to facilitate quickly and efficiently getting them up and running for an outdoor situation, which worked fabulously in 2020. I think it continued in 2021. We're still in the throes of the pandemic, so I think it makes sense. My comments before are really pursuant to when this thing breaks, we have to revisit.
And I guess I just want to be clear, because this is what I was asking. We have the fees and the paperwork and the how to do business by getting outdoor space already in place.
Correct.
It's not going to change. It's available.
We had it on the website.
Great. It hasn't changed though. Sometimes new year, new pennies. It hasn't changed.
Not
so
as
that's
far
great.
as I know.
Has not
Nobody
changed.
told me that. No.
The only hope we have is that we can upgrade the building department's software so they can actually do it online and not have to drag their, what's into town hall. Right, John Landy?
I would love to see that.
And outside dining, if I can say this time of year is kind of like people who want to jump into a lake.
I knew you were going to say that.
And I was
going to say, I bet you some of those people who jumped with us would want to go eat outside. We got a couple polar bears that live in your town.
So is the board supportive of having our town attorney draft a resolution extending the outdoor dining and sidewalk sales permit for the 2022 year?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So we'll direct our town attorney to do that and put it on next week's agenda. But to Mr. Landy, I think it's important, though, that we do contact those who are taking advantage. And if they want to do this permanently or beyond this year, that they should go through the proper process through the planning board.
Absolutely.
As we discussed, I think I'm going to personally go out to all the restaurants that have had obtained a permit in the past 2 years. I'll go out and talk to them, see if they want to make it a more permanent situation, and try to guide them through the proper channels.
And maybe what we can do is follow up also with a letter from the town board, and just as a follow up, so that they know they have something in hand in writing, explaining that if they want to go beyond the 22 year, then they have to take the necessary steps to go through the planning board process.
Just to interject. I mean, what we could do is we could implement now, and get the kind of ball rolling in that direction by saying that they have to renew their existing outdoor dining permit. Again, the fees are waived, and that will get them into the process of having to renew every year, so to speak. And if there's no renewal next year, they'll know better, and then that will force, not to give you more work, but that will get the town's eyes on it, get the building department's eyes on these locations, make sure they're still safe according to what you told them the last time you saw them, and that's it. And that'll get them into the habit that it's not an automatic renewal every year.
Right. And even though it's been a very busy 11 days, I would love to be part of like the how to get this ball rolling. And I'll go with John to look at the restaurants and read the law. But I
You're
do
more
think
than
that it's our job to support the community and helping them like jump those loopholes, because sometimes it is more just tedious than not feasible. So
Perfect. So, Mr. Landy, if you can just coordinate directly with Councilman Esposito and Councilwoman Howitt, they can run point, and we'll have the town attorney draft the necessary resolution for next week.
Perfect. No problem.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We got to be
job.
careful.
Sorry I
John,
was late. I didn't know you were early.
John Tegeter
Imagine
has
that.
backup.
It's a resolution for 2022. We're going to try to be on time, if not ahead of time.
Perfect. There you go. Thank you. Sorry.
And I just wanted to let it be known that John Tegeter now has backup here. I saw that Robin was. All right, so John, you're well covered.
Guns.
I'm not sweating anymore. So
No, you're good.
I got the big guns with me. So
You had backup.
things will be okay.
So our next item is an alternate use of the railroad station. It's being proposed by Bob Giordano and Sean Murphy. I see Bob. I don't know if Sean's there. I see he's signed on.
Sean may be late.
Okay. Well, we're a little bit early too, so that's not a big deal. But we are joined by our town planner, Robin Steinberg, as well as obviously John Tegeter, the director of planning. So, Bob, if you want to present your concept and idea to the board and the public, we're looking forward to hearing it.
Sure. First, I'd like to say good evening to everyone, especially the people who plunged in the Sparkle Lake with me on Saturday.
You guys are nuts.
So I sent an email earlier today that included the memo that I sent to the supervisor in October. So I won't go through that. That was just requesting that we meet to have this discussion. And unfortunately, a number of issues came up since then, and we had some scheduling issues. So, but included in the packet I sent earlier today was an outline, which I was going to use in the work session in October, which we never got to. So that what you got later on today is a revised outline. So I'll just give you a little history on the historic railroad station. Not that everyone needs it, but it is one of the few landmarks in town that have the three designations, both national, state, and local. Congratulations to the planning department for their recent recognition. John did a great job in the restoration. It was a long time in coming. I remember when the caboose was pulled out maybe 18, 20 years ago after sitting there idle around a chain link fence. I've personally had been hoping to get that station restored for quite some time, and it's done. So I think it was done in the 2020, 2021 timeframe. John, can you help me with that? When was it completed?
When was the restoration completed?
Yes, yeah.
2020.
2020. So anyway, so there following the completion of the restoration, there were several RFBs or RFPs, if you want to call them bids or proposals, the town put out with no responses by the due date. There were some inquiries and some after the due date. There were two bids, and finding out that there was no interest sort of piqued my interest personally. And I did make a correction somehow on the agenda tonight. I came up as president of the SBA. I'm representing myself, and Sean, if he chimes in here, is representing himself. We're not representing any other organizations. So Matt, you indicated and others indicated that your personal outreaches to some of the local eateries resulting in no interest. So here we are expressing an interest, but in looking at what the possibilities are, we see issues which we outlined. We did question the RFB as far as the need for an information center. That RFB was basically indicating that the town desired to have an information center, and I think that dates back many years. I'm not sure anyone believes that an information center today with cell phones and the internet and all the social media, that somebody's going to drive into town one day and say, Jesus, looks like a cool place. What's there to do around here? And then look for an information booth that's going to tell them. They're going to click away and know in a few minutes. So we don't think there's sufficient pedestrian traffic across the rail trail to support a business in that location. The inability to prepare foods on the premise, the lack of indoor seating, the size of the interior space. I did include a diagram of the building, and the RFB basically indicates that the vendor would have access to the baggage room and the ticket office, with the waiting room being the information center. I think that's a huge inhibiting factor to finding a use for the building. There's exterior space is mentioned in the RFB as the patio, and so the two small rooms, the ticket office and the baggage room and the patio, are the three areas that a given vendor would have access to. And again, we think that is not sufficient to be successful. Obviously, there's issues with the utility services, especially a restroom. Right now, I think the Parks and Rec Department keeps a handicap portage on there pretty much year round, and that's an inhibiting factor for the use there. So what do we think the possibilities are there? We think there's a lot of potential, but you need to give somebody an opportunity to try to prove the concepts out. And I won't read everything, but you see the list if you have it in front of you. Art shows, displays, arts and culture types of activities, craft fairs, musical performances, antique vintage market shows, pop-up tent events, small conference center if that waiting room were allowed to be used, various historical activities could be used for, by the museum, which I understand that they have used it on occasion over the years, many years ago. I think they've expressed an interest in having some showings there periodically. That would be a great use. Local farmers markets are 7 or 8 farms. I think would love to all be able to sell their products in that area. So we could turn this area possibly into a hub, a destination for people to come to where there's always something going on. We believe that its prime use time of year will be spring to the fall. Obviously, in the cold weather months, November, December, January, February, and March, without any significant interior space, it'll be difficult to utilize the exterior. So what we're looking for is an open discussion with the town board to see if there's a majority who would like to consider continuing the discussion about the potential uses, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Bob, just so you know, we have had discussions in the past regarding farmers market, night market, jazz bands, different events. The feast is already there. And we took that in consideration in our law that we're looking at for the legalization of alcohol there as well. Mm-hmm. So, these are all ideas that are on our table and we've been talking about. So as we get the new board in sync, we plan on having it on a work session. So if you'd like to join at that time, You know, and the input is great. These are some ideas that we've already visited because we realized the last go around with this tango that it doesn't really lend itself very well for anything unless it was a prepackaged type pickup item, and you're not gonna make your money on that in the
Right.
park for the most of bicyclists go through pretty quick.
As a food concession stand, you're speaking of.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
it's all stuff you can pick up.
Yep.
So Bob, your proposal is that you want some kind of exclusivity to the location? Is that what I understand, or is it? I don't understand. I mean, because right now the location's open.
We're flexible. Exclusivity would be nice, but the list of activities that we see there would automatically mean that other town entities would want to be the Chamber 1, the Lions 2, the Museum 3, I call it Landmarks Preservation and the Historical Society. So we would think that anyone that would have an agreement to have that space would I think the town should require that there would be similar to the theater. When the theater is not in use by Yorktown Stage, the town has a right to use the theater. So I would see an agreement similar to that, and some kind of a partnership.
Yeah, I don't think that Jim, because you could help me on this. I don't think that our Parks and Rec department would want anyone to have ownership per se over any of our parks or lease on our park for any given amount of time. I think that it's more a individualized thing. The town should be controlling it through Parks and Recreation, and they schedule it and have things going. If it's a farmer's market, if it's a craft fair, whatever, that should be arranged through our Parks and Recreation department as part of their job. And I know, like, when I first started on the board, there was a plan about moving the highway garage and doing like a clamshell over there and buildings and having that whole walkability from Patriot Park right through to Railroad Park. So it's definitely an evolving type of situation, but I think the main thing I worry about when we talk about that is taking one of our parks out of the hands of Parks and Recreation. I'd be real skeptical about that.
Yeah,
Well,
similar to Panganera Feast. I think that event to event, Bob. If you want to present a handful of events, and we could, write you a permit to run, let's say quarterly events. I think that would make sense. But yeah, use throughout the year, I think it would be a little bit tough.
And I like what Jim is saying, because if we have a calendar, we also have almost like a newsletter of like, hey, guess what's going on in Yorktown? And it kind of makes us more proactive. And I understand what you're saying about, because I love the idea of having any sort of interactions in any of our beautiful parks. And I think the Park and Rec for taking really good care of them. But one of the main thing here is also, even with the Yorktown Stage, I feel like there's a negotiation and then there's a timing, and sometimes it just doesn't work out for either one party. So I think that if we did have something where, the town can support your events list, like you said, and then you got all these people coming in, and there's something that these events have to do in order to take place, and we clear it with Parks and Rec, I think it would be exciting even to have a monthly schedule for the town.
Yeah, Bob, we also talked about maybe a monthly farmers market that maybe you could help run. That might be something we have an appetite for as well. Sorry, Serge. No,
that's okay. Yeah, there's nothing that precludes you from having, from scheduling events, and there's nothing that'll stop you from doing something like that anyway. But I guess, I don't know. What is everybody?
Well, I would say just to make sure that it goes on the record, there's no plan for a farmer's market there unless we could manage to involve our local farms. because there's a lot of concern because we have so many farms in the area, but between the staffing and running a stand while you're trying to run the rest of everything going has been a problem.
Yeah,
so,
we tried giving them free tables up at the Jefferson Valley Mall. They just couldn't staff it. So
right,
it is a challenge for the local farms to be able to man the farmers markets.
Right, but there may be a solution.
And then also, just as an aside, I think the town board has had this conversation a number of times. But if you're going to do something over at Railroad Park as like a farmers market, you gotta have a conversation with Meadows, which is right almost now.
Yeah, there was an issue when the farmers market was at the firehouse, and I know there was a lot of concerns expressed through Meadows, but the farmers market is just one of the things in the list that are a possibility to do there. So I'm not going to get stuck on one particular item as being the most important.
We wanted to at one point the chamber wanted to do a concert there, and we wanted a restaurant to come in and kind of like have like little outdoor seating, some tables, have some music in the park kind of thing, But aside from when the Lions do theirs, something maybe in March or April or May or something like that, and the restaurants just had no appetite to be there because they just didn't have staffing either. So, these ideas have been tossed around. They're very good ideas. I think there's a lot of potential for that location. It's just timing. Right now, the timing is everything.
I don't think so. I think maybe a takeaway from you is to come up with a more focused event that you like to host there, and then either come back to the board and have a conversation with Jimmy and the Parks Department, and then we can try to accommodate the best that we can. But I don't think anyone's saying no to any of the ideas that you're presenting. We'd like to see a more, I think, detailed approach as to how you expect to accomplish them and execute the ideas, and then working directly with our Parks Department, we can try to put a plan together.
Gotcha. That's fair. I'm good.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Take care. Thanks, Sean. All right. We're going to go to resolutions. Going to unmute. Let's see. So we'll take them together. We have a resolution to authorize the supervisor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the County of Westchester for the county to operate and maintain the bus shelters in town and convey a non-exclusive easement over the town's property used to operate the bus shelter, subject to a permissive referendum. We're going to authorize the supervisor to execute an extension of an agreement with Yorktown Auto Body with the conditions set forth in the town contract, retroactive to January 1st of 2022 through the end of 2022. Authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Springbrook in an amount not to exceed $81,616.99 for upgrades to the townwide finance, payroll, and human resources software. Be it further resolved that the town comptroller is hereby authorized to transfer $55,000 from the general fund to computer support and software. From the finance department, authorize the comptroller to process a budget transfer. The comptroller is hereby authorized to process $45,000 from the general fund contingency to general supplies, and this is for the purchase of emergency COVID supplies. Please note this is from the 2021 budget, not the 2022 budget. We're going to authorize the comptroller to process another transfer. This is from the highway department's fund balance, $334,000, so that it goes to the capital project of the highway garage improvement. This is for the payment to S&L Plumbing for the boiler replacement and the installation of the ventilation system. We're also going to authorize the comptroller to process another budget transfer from the highway department fund balance of $24,500 to the capital project of the highway garage improvement for the payment of David Tetro PC for architectural services and Revens Design PEPC for engineering services associated with the boiler replacement, the installation of the ventilation system, and addition to the highway garage. We're going to authorize the comptroller to pay A. DeVito and Sons, Inc. This is for the capital project for the at Town Hall that we discussed earlier in the agenda. From the highway department, we're going to extend the stone, gravel, concrete materials bid. We're going to authorize the town clerk to advertise an RFP for the Lake Mohegan aquatic pesticide treatments. We're also going to authorize the town board to accept the carryover of 2021 accrued time for Nicholas Titka. We will authorize the town board to adopt the 2022 Westchester County Hazard Mitigation Plan update. And we have a number of human resources resolutions to appoint Charles Chase to maintenance worker within the sewer department, to appoint Anthony Mastro Giovanni to water maintenance worker within the water department, to appoint Ed Kolich to assistant building inspector within the building department, to appoint Carla Duca to maintenance worker within the sewer department, to appoint David Nikashir to lead maintenance mechanic within the highway department, and to appoint Mike Carducci to the sewer maintenance foreman within the sewer department. Any discussion on the resolutions? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Give a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion's carry. If there's no other business before the board, Councilman Diana, did you want to go back into close, or are you good to adjourn?
Well, we want to do the law enforcement.
Oh, I am so sorry. Yes, sir. Thank you. We're supposed to do that as part of the announcements. I apologize. Please, we do. It's not on the agenda, but we do have a resolution recognizing Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which passed on January 9th. Councilman Diana, please take it away.
Thank you, Supervisor. Whereas the town of Yorktown has long supported its law enforcement professionals, and whereas on May 31st, 1927, under the administration of James N. Strang, the Yorktown Police Department was created and appointed Ernst Myatt as the first police officer. And whereas on May 15th, 1929, the board authorized the purchase of the first department's police car. Whereas the police department has called several places in Yorktown home until it dedicated its headquarters in 1973 when George Calganini became chief of police. The Yorktown Police Department remains in the same facility today. And whereas the Yorktown Police Department was one of the first accredited agencies in the state of New York in 1991 and has maintained its accredited status. And whereas the town of Yorktown also recognizes its many residents who work for other law enforcement agencies, including the New York Police Department, Yonkers Police Department, Westchester County Department of Public Safety, New York State Troopers, Department of Environmental Protection, and others. And whereas January 9th is recognized as Law Enforcement Appreciation Day as a sign of appreciation for the dangerous work and sacrifice of police officers in order to keep people safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Yorktown recognizes January 9th as Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and be it further resolved that the Yorktown Town Board recognizes and applauds superior work of the Yorktown Police Department and its members, both past and present. And be it further resolved that the Yorktown Town Board recognizes and applauds the many residents who serve to protect others as members of other law enforcement agencies.
Well done. We'll make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And
Big day.
if I could
Go
just say one thing, Tommy, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Sergio. Appreciate that.
Councilman Diana, a former Yorktown police officer himself, and to all of our retirees and active police officers here in the town of Yorktown, serving the town of Yorktown or serving other law enforcement agencies, thank you so much for your sacrifice and for your service to our community, and to those you protect and serve every single day. We greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, may God bless you.
Councilman Diana, I apologize. I forgot that we were going to do that at the beginning of the meeting.
It fell in the back of my papers too, so it was like.
Okay, good. I'm glad you caught it at the end. And with that, we will make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So move.
So move.
All
Second.
in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Good night, Yorktown.
Good
Good night, everyone.